Welcome back. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are making their final pitches to voters today with just one day until Election Day. Trump is holding campaign rallies in North Carolina, in Pennsylvania, and in Michigan, while Harris is focusing on Pennsylvania on this last day on the campaign trail. Two new national polls released yesterday showed Trump and Harris in a very tight race. An ABC News Ipsos poll says that Harris leads Trump 49 to 46% with a 2% margin of error, while an NBC News poll finds that Trump and Harris are tied at 49%. Joining me now is former Arkansas governor, former presidential candidate, and Trump surrogate, Mike Huckabee. Governor, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be with you, Maria. Just a few more hours and this starts being over, and I think most Americans will be glad. Yeah.
Are you buying these polls, Governor? I mean, I can't believe how tight these polls are. And they tightened even further if you look at the betting markets overnight.
I really don't buy it. I mean, there was one that came out over the weekend in Iowa, and it showed that Kamala Harris had erased a 10-point lead by Donald Trump, and she was now 3 ahead. Let me tell you why there's no credibility to that. If that poll were real, both candidates would be going to Iowa this week. They're not. They didn't go over the weekend. They're not going today. They're not going tomorrow. And the reason is because their own polls show them that that state is not in play. Where they're focused is where you see this race coming down to. And I'd say more than anything, it's Pennsylvania. And frankly, national polls don't mean anything because it's going to be decided by the Electoral College. But what does matter is whether or not there's enthusiasm for either candidate. I don't see enthusiasm so much for Kamala Harris. I see enthusiasm against Donald Trump. That's the only reason she's got any momentum at all. And it's just because some people are stupid enough to believe that all of the Trump supporters are garbage, Nazis, fascist, un-American, all the labels that have been thrown. But I'm going to tell you what that's done. It's also motivated the Trump voters to say, you know, I don't like being called un-American, fascist, racist, homophobe, transphobe, and every other name, including garbage. So I think I'll just show up and vote for Trump and mess up the minds of the other side.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I'm wondering if we're going to know on election night, because this whole idea of waiting 2, 3, 4 days a week until we know who the president is really frustrating. So let's talk about some closings and what races you're going to be focused on. 7 o'clock, the polls close in Georgia and Virginia. 7:30, North Carolina and Ohio. You got 8 o'clock, 8 p.m. tomorrow night. Florida closes, Michigan closes, Pennsylvania closes, Texas closes. That's going to be a big hour, the 8 p.m. hour. At 9 p.m., Arizona closes. Then you've got Nebraska, New York, Wisconsin closing then as well. And then at 10 o'clock at night, you got Nevada closing. What are you going to be watching most closely on election night? And do you think we're going to know on election night who won?
I certainly hope so. I think it's a disgrace that the elections can't be decided on election night. And the only reason it can't is because you have election officials in these states that just haven't created efficiency. Florida is a great example. Back in 2000, their election process was a total mess. We all remember the Bush-Gore debacle. But they cleaned it up. They've got one of the most efficient election processes, covers 2 different time zones. It's a huge state, gotten even bigger, and they'll have their election results in before people go to bed. If they can do it, anybody can do it, and every other state ought to look to Florida as the model.
Yeah. Well, look, we've got so much mudslinging in this, the 11th hour here. President Biden insulted Trump supporters again during a campaign stop in Pennsylvania this weekend. Watch this.
When I was in Scranton, we used to have a little trouble going down the plot once in a while from Greenwich. But I'm serious. These are the kind of guys you like to smack.
Just the other day, a speaker at his rally called Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage. Well, let me tell you something. I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
It's just unbelievable, Governor. 2 assassination attempts and this, rhetoric, these slurs keep on coming.
You know, Joe is like a jack-in-the-box that jumps up and scares little kids. And he needs to be put back in the box, and they need to put duct tape over the top so he doesn't pop up again. It's got to be a huge embarrassment to Kamala Harris. But here's the real issue. Kamala Harris has already said her policies will be the same as this guy's. Do we really want 4 more years of this? I don't think so. So if people believe there's a better way to have this country go, and about 75% say we're on the wrong track, then voting for Kamala Harris is like voting to have your own toes cut off by the person doing your pedicure. I just don't think it's a good idea.
Liz Peek, jump in.
Good morning, Governor. Thanks for joining us. I'm concerned that men are absolutely essential to showing up for this election. If Trump's going to win, it's got to be because men come out in the numbers that they're polling, which is where he has about a 7 or 8 point advantage with men. My concern is that more women vote than men. How can they turn that around, or are they turning it around?
Liz, I think they are, and it's part of it just from what we've listened to. Men don't like to be insulted. They don't like to be told that they're idiots and they're stupid and they just aren't as smart as some of the elites, and especially working class men who stand on heavy, lift heavy things and stand on concrete floors all day, come home bone tired, and you've got a presidential candidate who basically treats them with contempt. I think there are a lot of people who say, enough of this. I work hard. And you're going to pay off student loans of people who are doctors and lawyers with the money that I've made being a plumber, an electrician, or a finished carpenter. No, thank you. People really do understand the disaster of that.
Governor, what'd you make of this Iowa poll? Newt Gingrich is saying that he's not buying it, but, Iowa, this latest Iowa poll in the 11th hour shows Harris winning here after all the momentum that Trump has had in these final couple of months.
I've talked to several of my friends in Iowa. Not one of them do anything other than laugh out loud at that poll. They think it's ridiculous. And as I said before, if it were real, you'd see at least one of these candidates, if not both of them, changing their schedules and getting over to Iowa, because that would be a place they'd have to go. Neither of them are scheduling it.
Good point. Cheryl, jump in.
Well, I think in this final day before Election Day, Governor, the simple question now is, what do you think the best closing argument is out there for former President Trump to close women and to get them to vote for him tomorrow?
Cheryl, it really comes down to, are you safe in your community? Are you safe in your home? And can you afford the groceries on your table? And can you afford the gas in your car? And the answer is no. And if women vote only for abortion, which frankly doesn't make sense because abortion is now in the hands of the states. People can get an abortion if they want to. I would to God that they wouldn't, because I believe every life has value and worth. But if that's the only reason that people vote is so women can kill their babies at will, then we got a really sick culture going on. So I think the closing message for Donald Trump to women is, this is about you. It's not about me, Donald Trump. It's about you. It's about whether your kids can play in the yard without fear of being the victim of a crime by somebody who's come across the border illegally. It's about whether you can afford to send them to camp or college. It's about whether you can live your life with a level of freedom and economic capacity. And you can't do it if Kamala Harris gets in, because you've lived under the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris policies for 4 years, and it's been a real mess for you. So why inflict that pain on yourself for 4 more years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Governor, what's the most important policy you'd like to see changed should Trump return to the White House? Is it the border?
I mean, that's a big part of it. But, Marie, I think the bigger issue is just getting back to where America is a country that treats everybody the same, that you don't use the alphabet agencies of Washington, D.C. to go after your political enemies, and you punish the people that disagree with you, and you tell women who go to school board meetings to protect their children that they're going to be put on the terror watch list. This insanity has got to stop, and we need to quit doing things that defy common sense, like pushing the idea of mutilating children when they're 12 and 13 years old, and don't even let them have a tattoo. You don't let them get beer, or you don't let them buy tobacco, but you let them change their bodies irreversibly. This isn't about progressive. This is about being stupid, and we need to quit being stupid.
Matt, this is really, really distressing when you take a look at the impact of these policies on American citizens. And if you just ask that question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? I think most people would say no, given the level of inflation.
There's no way somebody can say, yeah, I'm really better off. Everything is better. My groceries are cheaper. I can afford gas. I can go places. Right. Airline tickets are better. Hotels. There's nothing that is actually better. So if that's the case, voting for Kamala Harris is truly one of the most, I guess, inexplicable things I can think of. Why would you do that? If you don't like Donald Trump's personality, okay, that's fine. But I like his candor. I like the fact that there's a transparency there that is refreshingly apolitical. He says what he thinks. You may not like it, but you don't have to have the Kamala Harris issue, which is one state you tell people you're pro-Israel, in another you tell them you're pro-Palestinian. So what you have is somebody who is a candidate who changes positions more than Cher changes costumes during a concert. I just think that there's something incredibly disingenuous about that, and you can't trust a person who does it.
So today, Nikki Haley is out with an op-ed in the Journal, Governor, and it says, look, Trump may not be perfect, but he's the better choice. Do you think Trump needs to go after the Nikki Haley supporters aggressively in these final hours?
Well, I think he needs to go after everybody, but he needs to keep reminding them that they may not like his personality. He can be abrasive. You know, I tell people he's like a guy on a construction site in Queens. That's who he is. I find it kind of refreshing that he's just so honest about what he's thinking. But I do think that it's a great opportunity for him to remind people that they're not electing, as Franklin Graham so brilliantly said, you're not electing somebody to be your Valentine. You're electing them to manage the country and to scare off foreign enemies and to lead this country to economic prosperity for everybody, no matter their color, no matter their gender, no matter their geographical location, to make America great again. And gee, that's a great phrase. Maybe he should use that. I don't know. It could be a winner.
All right, Governor. Great to see you this morning, Governor. Thank you.
Thanks.